would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me to express my unorthodox views. Science uses first principles to produce explanations that can be tested using experimental evidences. For environmental study, this practice is not practical because environmental studies may last for hundreds of years, and we have no time to see the results in order to conclude scientific conclusion what to do next. Therefore, for this lecture, I will set aside the scientific approach to produce a manifest that is based on first principles. So first of all, I would like to point out to the chemistry of the universe that is not discussed frequently. Chemistry is very simple. Hydrogen is the most abundant element on Earth, and oxygen is extremely rare. It is produced by violent volcanic cosmic events. However, because oxygen has positive redox potential and hydrogen that is much more abundant has negative redox potential, eventually all the oxygen that is produced is reduced to water. And water is quite abundant in the universe in comparison to oxygen, of course, much more abundant than oxygen. Now, when we look at our planet, it is dominated by oxygen. And all of this oxygen was produced by one reaction. It's called oxygenic photosynthesis. Oxygenic photosynthesis operates in many organisms, in plants on the terrestrial part, algae and bacteria in the oceans, but is totally dominating the environment on Earth. Essentially, it created the environment on Earth. This process started over 2 billion years ago when the Earth was totally anaerobic with no oxygen present. And gradually, it produced more and more oxygen. By so doing, it helped generate equilibrium that increased in oxygen production, but of course, in the last several thousand years, it is in total steady state, and everything looks peaceful and in equilibrium right now. So the organic material is used by most of the organisms on Earth, and photosynthesis, it produces this organic material. However, part of the organic material is not used for further life processes, but it's buried in the ground. And this generated the fossil fuel that we are digging now and burn it. Nevertheless, the fact that it is burned, it didn't interrupt with the surface of Earth and the beautiful equilibrium that we see. There is one thing that we don't see is the human population. The human population was in equilibrium for many thousand years on Earth until the last few hundred years, it started multiplying too much. Moreover, some of the population was concentrated in towns, in big concentrations. This immediately caused a reaction by biology, say to say. And biology brought the Black Plague, and the Black Plague reduced the amount of people in Europe by 30%. But ever since science took over and it anticipated the plagues, know how to treat them, and largely prevent their damage. And therefore, human population increased tremendously in the last 200 years. And now it is increasing exponentially. This cannot go forever. This cannot go forever, not because other things, but a law of physics, the second law of thermodynamics. So what is thermodynamics? thermodynamics in lay terms, we have first law, second law, and other developments in physics. The first law states that in closed system, the amount of energy is constant. And the second law says that even though the amount of total energy is constant, one can convert one energy form to another. However, it caused in disorder in the system that in order to increase more disorder, you have to excrete the disorder outside the system. But if you do it, you have to provide energy into the system. And this is exactly what happened with human beings. So every time that energy is transduced, part of it, and eventually all of it become useless for human. And this can be illustrated in this closed system divided by a section. You have a hot chamber and cold chamber divided by a section. If you put electric generator right here, it can use the heat gradient in order to produce electricity. However, if it is equilibrated already, no electricity can be produced. And this points out to irreversibility that is quite unique in laws of physics. Now, the human population increased, as I said, constantly. And what is the meaning of increasing population? Let's take human being. Start with a single cell that develop into human. Now, in order to go from single cell to human, of course, it increased enormously the order in the system, because you have many organs and so on and so forth to build and to maintain with energy everything that you do, walk, run, so on. So in order to increase the order in human, you have to increase the disorder outside of the system and to bring into the system constant amount of constant flow of energy to maintain the system. The same goes for population. However, according to the second law of thermodynamics, if the population grows, the disorder out of the system of the population is growing even greater than the energy consumed by the population to grow. So the disorder is compiled. Now, to reverse it partially, you need enormous amount of energy, and the use of this energy will generate even bigger disorder than the disorder that you want to treat. So we have to be very careful with these terms, and what we can do about it, I will discuss it in the future slides. So human population grew because it has abundant energy source that was provided by the oxygenic photosynthesis, namely fossil fuels. And now we are in the end of an era of using abundant fossil fuels, not because they are exhausted, but because they cause enormous damage to the environment. So Ahmed Zaki Yamani, the former oil minister of Saudi Arabia, put it in a very nice sentence. The Stone Age did not end because the world ran out of stones. And the same goes for today. The era of using fossil fuels coming to an end, not because there is no more fossil fuels there. To put it in lay terms, every year we burn organic material that photosynthesis produces in 1 million years. Now we can go on for about 1,000 years to do it, because effective photosynthesis is more than 1 billion years on Earth. So 1 million year for every year of our consumption, it's enough for about 1,000 years of consuming fossil fuels. But this cannot be done for many reasons, but the prime reason is the damage to the environment. Every year, the world population is increased. Lifestyle is constantly increased. Now, what we have to do lifestyle with the energy that we are using. So increasing in lifestyle increase the energy demand, and using energy cause the environment disorder to the environment. So unavoidable disorder is compiled. This jeopardizes the future of human race. What is the sustainable population on Earth? So my answer is 5 billion people. One can say 6, one can say 4, but there is final number that we can sustain on Earth, and we cannot go around it. Therefore, we must go back to July 11, 1987 in terms of world population, energy demand, number of cars, mileage of flights, and tangible productivity. To put it in numbers, the world population increased from 5 billion to 7.9 billion today. Energy consumption from 100 to 180,000 terabytes per hour. Total airplane passengers from 1.1 to 4.8 billion in 2019. The COVID decreased it to 1.9. Even though the airports are half empty, it is not, they didn't come down to the number that we need in 1987. Total money supply is $88 trillion. It increased to 145. Now I will argue that printing money is printing energy and using energy and causing damage to the environment. And there is no way around it. In the last 2 years, the world printed about $12 billion. It is like printing energy from nothing. And this is, of course, against the laws of physics. This generated enormous environmental disorder that cannot be reversed. What can we do? 1, gradually but decisively reduce the world population to 5 billion people by allowing 1.5 children per family. Impose sanctions on every country and society that encourage population growth. Gradually decrease the lifestyle to the level of 1987 by preventive excessiveness. I lived at the time in 1987, and life was not bad at all. All the extra things that we are now using now, they are part of excessiveness. And I would argue again and again that excessiveness generates disorder for the environment. And if you use more money, more gadgets, more everything, you generate disorder in the environment and damage our future. So the first practical thing that we can do is to eliminate low-cost flights and impose 1,000 global energy tax on every passenger. Low-cost flights really damage the environment. And the best example is the spread of COVID. The low-cost flight helped this virus spreading in record low time. Reduce the money supply by $50 trillion. Imply heavy energy tax on tourist flight to the upper atmosphere. Now, in the last year, 3 billionaires competed who will do it more beautifully to fly to the upper atmosphere to look at Earth from up. They wasted enormous amount of energy and caused enormous damage to the environment. It is, in my mind, equivalent of asking the human population to decrease its number by thousands of people in order for somebody to go up and look at Earth and come back. This should be totally eliminated. Prevent excessive use of energy in any shape or form. Now, one will argue, okay, we will use so-called clean energy. There is no such a thing. There is no clean energy. There is a cleaner energy in comparison with another energy use. But a small thing that we can do is, for example, eliminate cryptographic coins such as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a very good example of such excessiveness that is totally useless. To produce Bitcoin, you need an enormous amount of energy, but this is the small damage. The big damage is to generate money from nothing. And if you generate money from nothing, you generate billionaires from nothing. You generate billionaires from nothing, you generate bigger consumption and excessiveness. You produce excessiveness, you damage the environment irreversibly. So we also must consider charging things in the internet, because the free internet has a lot of damage on many aspects, including children and old people. Declare war on the darknet. To sum it up until now, we have one simple equation to keep in mind. K equal P plus L. K is constant, P population, L lifestyle, and lifestyle equivalent to global energy consumption. Now, the fourth thing is comply with the thermodynamic rules for energy production, consumption, storage, and waste disposal. There is no way to go around it. If somebody does a thing that the second law of thermodynamics says no, it means that it does not exist, and he wasted money and he caused damage to the environment. So what can we do to limit the damage to environment? Is to look for an alternative energy source to minimize the unavoidable damage, global disorder. I'll give you two examples that are hypothetical and probably will never be utilized, but I want to show you the mind, how I think that the future should proceed. One is damming the Red Sea for electricity production. Two, sensible plan for atomic energy utilization. Damming the Red Sea for electricity production. The Red Sea is a unique sea in the world that is surrounded by desert at high temperature. And it has no single river that feed it with fresh water. Therefore, all the water that is evaporated from the Red Sea has to be replenished by water from the Indian Ocean through the gates. So what will happen if we dam the gates and the Suez Canal right here by dams, two dams? According to my calculation, it should be tested by a panel of experts. The level of the Red Sea will decrease by 8 meters in 4 years. This lower level of sea in comparison with the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean has enough energy to produce electricity of 1 terabyte per year and 1 terawatt per year. Now, the big advantage of it that we can produce this electricity exclusively at night. And if we produce it exclusively at night, it will be enough to supply this electricity for the Middle East and Europe at nighttime. So the Red Sea will serve as a big battery for accumulating energy in order to use it at night time when the solar system is not working. Of course, we will have to produce the rest of the electricity by solar systems that harness the sunlight in the Sahara Desert and in the Middle East in the desert. These are very nice places to put solar panels and to produce a lot of energy at daytime. What will happen with the shipment from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean? This can be solved easily by building water steps in the two dams that will require very little energy in order to lift the ships 8 meters and to proceed with their journey. The second thing is to use atomic energy. When I say it, immediately I can be labeled as the enemy of the environment. But I thought about this in the last 60 years, and I didn't change my mind that this is still the most clean energy that is available to us today. And we should do it sensibly and do it. Of course, I'm aware of Fukushima and Chernobyl, but I think that if we'll do it right, in scientific way, we'll prevent this kind of disasters and nothing like this will happen again. So how can we do it to minimize the environmental damage? Use natural uranium and plutonium that is abundant because of the production of the atomic bombs for electricity production. This installation can last for 80 years and provide a lot of energy with minimal damage to the environment. Now, compulsory and concomitantly, purification industry of atomic waste should be built alongside the installation for electricity production. If we'll do it, the waste, the atomic waste, the radioactive waste can be concentrated to very low volume and weight. And then after 80 years of constant electricity production, the technology will be so safe that we can put this waste on a rocket and ship it not only outside of Earth, but outside of the solar system. By so doing, we will not pollute even the solar system. So in summary, I will say that I think that the second half of the 20th century was the prime time for human race. While my generation enjoyed living in this period, we were selfish in considering the problems we were generating for the future generation. According to the second law of thermodynamics, there is no way to reverse the inflicted damage. To minimize future damage, simply, we must comply with laws of physics. And I will end by showing you me abusing the environment in the coast of the Mediterranean. Thank you.